All right, welcome back, future teachers. We are diving into part 4 of our deep dive into TKT Module 1, and we're still on grammar. Last time, we got the building blocks down, the parts of speech. Today, we're going to put those blocks together. We're unlocking 3 core systems of English mechanics: agreement, tense, and voice. Seriously, think of these as the absolute blueprints for building solid, accurate sentences. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, let's jump right into one of the most fundamental and honestly one of the trickiest areas for our students: subject-verb agreement. It sounds simple, right? It's all about making sure the subject and the verb in a sense actually cooperate. If one's singular, the other has to be singular. If one's plural, the other has to follow. But it's not always that easy. And this slide, wow, it just perfectly lays out 2 of the biggest hurdles. So on the left, you've got these indefinite pronouns, everyone, somebody. The thing is, they feel plural, don't they? They refer to a bunch of people, but grammatically, they're always singular. That's a huge trip up for students. Then on the right, you've got collective nouns like team or family. And these guys are like little chameleons. They can be singular or plural depending on what you mean. It's all about context. So here's the key takeaway for your classroom. You have to tackle this conflict between what a word feels like and what the grammar rule is. A student hears everyone, they picture a crowd, and bam, R just sounds right to them. Everyone are happy. We hear it all the time, right? Our job, as this teacher tip points out, is to get right in there and show them that, grammatically speaking, everyone is treated as one single thing, one unit.
All right, next up, let's talk about the engine of the verb itself, the tense system. Now think about how you learned tenses. Was it just a long list of 12 things to memorize? Yeah, me too. But here's the thing. For our students, that's not the best way. It's so much more powerful to teach it as a logical system. We're going to stop memorizing and start understanding how these tenses are actually built.
Okay, now this is cool. What's so great about this slide is that it turns the whole tense system into a really simple formula. It's just time times aspect. That's it. You've got your 3 times, past, present, future, and you've got 4 aspects that tell you how the action happens. Is it simple? Is it ongoing? Suddenly, those 12 tenses aren't some random list you have to cram into your brain. They're part of a logical grid, a matrix. It just makes so much more sense. And this is exactly why visuals are your best friend in the classroom. They are just so powerful for telling apart concepts that always trip students up. I mean, look at this timeline. It helps a student actually see the difference between a habit, something you do every day like she drinks coffee, that's present simple, and an action that's happening right this second. She is reading a book, present continuous. That visual distinction is everything. Okay, so now let's take that same logic and apply it to the past. Seriously, a visual like this is absolutely priceless when you're trying to teach something like the past perfect. Your students will really struggle with a sentence like, she had cooked breakfast before the kids woke up. They just hear past and past. But a timeline shows them, plain as day, that the past perfect isn't just, more in the past. It's about an action that was finished before another past action happened. It's all about the sequence of events. That's the light bulb moment. And guess what? We can do the exact same thing for the future. You can help your students actually see what a sentence like, by next year, I will have graduated means. The future perfect can feel super abstract, right? But this kind of visual just grounds it. It shows it's just an action that will be totally finished by a specific point in the future. It's all about looking ahead and projecting when something will be complete. So think about it. Once your students get the why, the function, from those timelines we just looked at, then this matrix becomes this amazing tool for nailing the how, the form. And this is the really crucial part, like the teacher tip says, just memorizing this table, that's only step 1. Real mastery, the kind that sticks, comes from understanding those relationships in time we just mapped out. Okay, so we've covered when an action happens with tenses. Now let's look at who or what gets the spotlight in the sentence. And that brings us to our 3rd big system for today, the active and passive voice. And let's be super clear, this is not about changing the meaning of a sentence. It's all about changing the focus, the emphasis. And this slide just lays out the mechanics of it perfectly. It's like looking under the hood of a car. So in the active voice, the person doing the action is front and center. The teacher explains the lesson. Simple enough. But we can totally re-engineer that sentence to put the spotlight on the thing being acted on. The lesson is explained. See that? The core information is identical. All we've done is change the camera angle, the lens we're looking through. But this leads to the most important question of all. A question you have to help your students answer. Why? Why would you even use the passive voice? Because if we only teach them the structure, it just looks like a clumsy, complicated way to say something simple. But it's not. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and it has very specific, very important jobs to do.
And boom! Here are the answers. This slide gives you 4 crystal clear, practical reasons. You use the passive when you don't know who did it. The painting was stolen. Who stole it? No idea. Or when it just doesn't matter who did it. Like, the results will be announced tomorrow. We don't care who announces them, we just want the results. See how this changes everything? The passive voice stops being a dry grammar rule and becomes a strategic choice you make as a communicator.
And here's a really important expert-level tip for your teaching. You have to point out the rarely used passive forms. I mean, sure, a sentence like, "A letter has been being written" is technically possible, but does anyone actually say that? No way, it's super clumsy and awkward. Our job isn't just to teach what's grammatically possible, it's to guide our students toward what sounds natural and fluent.
So, the big question is, how do we take all this theory, all this stuff about agreement, tense, and voice, and actually bring it to life in the classroom? How do we make it stick? Let's shift gears now from the what to the how.
Okay, this framework right here is a classic for a reason. It works. The #1 rule is don't just walk in and state a grammar rule on the board. Instead, start with a context. Give them a story, a cool picture, a little mystery to solve. Let them find the grammar pattern themselves. That's guided discovery. Then you give them some controlled practice, like fill in the blanks, to build confidence. And finally, you let them loose to use it freely in a real conversation or task.
And here are just a few ideas to get you started. Want to practice the passive voice? Have your students write news reports or headlines. It's a perfect real-world fit. The present perfect? Find someone who games are amazing for that. And my personal favorite, the alibi game. It's brilliant. It forces students to contrast the past continuous, "I was watching TV," with the past simple, "when the phone rang." All of a sudden, grammar isn't a boring worksheet. It's the tool you need to win the game.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. Let's step back and look at the big picture and really see how these 3 systems, agreement, tense, and voice, all interlock to create that language blueprint we've been talking about.
And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? Think of it this way. Agreement is the foundation of your building. It has to be solid. Tense is the engine that makes the whole thing go, driving the action through time. And voice? That's the camera lens that you, the speaker, choose to focus your audience's attention. The key thing to remember is that these are not separate, isolated topics. They're like interlocking gears in a machine, all working together to create precise, powerful meaning.
So, as you continue preparing for the TKT, and even more importantly, as you get ready for your own classroom, I want you to leave with these questions. How are you going to use timelines to make tense relationships click for your students? What real-world examples, like news headlines, can you find to show them why the passive voice is actually useful? And which common agreement error are you going to tackle first? The goal isn't just to know the rules. The real question is, how will you bring this blueprint to life for your students?